Welcome back to the shop. I thought I'd give an update. Not a lot of machine work going on right now. Still doing a lot of cleanup, working on some of the machines. So I'll walk you around a little bit and show you what has changed. So we've gotten rid of a lot of things and kind of straightened up. I'm trying to get rid of a lot of this furniture here to make room in the shop. Using the arbor press a little bit, I'll show you in a second a little job that we had some sheet metal, installing some captive nuts. Let's see. The south bend, I looked up the serial number, did a little bit of research on it. It was, the serial number puts it around manufacture or purchase at around 1942. It's an 818 3E. It's a 14.5 inch swing. Going to be getting a new belt for it. This one in there right now is a little bit stretched. I don't have any belt material. I have some of this other stuff that must have been for other machines, but it's too big. I did find a clippered splicing tool and some splices and stuff in one of these cabinets, so that was interesting find. But I think I'm probably just going to get a new one using that gift certificate that I got from the summer bash. Mill, nothing really new on it. Cleaned up some of the wiring on the encoders for the DRO, cleaned it up a little bit, and then actually reconfigure the DRO. Before, it didn't have the axis labels on it for some reason, so I just went in and reset the menu and everything, and it seems to be working good. Like I said, just a lot of cleanup, just easy stuff, things that really we don't need, been getting rid of. I'm a little bit limited on what I can do. It would be great just to be able to have like a rollaway or a dumpster pulled off and just do everything in one fell swoop, but the way the shop is located on campus here, I can't really do that, so I have to kind of stage things and have our facility folks pick that up and kind of do it in bits and pieces. So that's kind of what I'm doing. I want to show you some stuff here that I found. This is an NSK 3-jaw, kind of a flat chuck for setup and things like that. I have stored some rotary tables that they had here in the shop. I'm imagining that they were used on the larger machines. The one on the bottom is the 18-inch Troik, and the next one up there is a 16-inch USA, so they look like they're pretty much brand new and hardly used at all. So I kind of cleaned those up and oiled them, and we'll store those and hold on to them and maybe trade those in for some other equipment that we could use. I didn't talk much about this guy here. This is actually some kind of tap grinding tool. I'm imagining you can do other things with it. It's missing a lot of the holders and things for it. I actually talked to the gentleman who worked here before, and he said that they never really used it, so we might be getting rid of this guy. I don't see a real need for it here in the shop. I've talked a lot about the lathe in the last video. There's still a lot more I need to do with it. The tailstock is working fine. These drives here on this is again a hard hinge kind of knockoff. It's your cross slide and your carriage drives are done with a separate motor here, and this has got a clutch system in it that needs some attention. It's still slipping and won't drive the carriage in towards the headstock. And then also, whenever you turn the machine on, you're getting a movement here in the cross slide, which has really caught me a couple times. I had made my setting on my dial and went to make my cut, and what happened is this jumps a little bit, and it jumped in and messed up the part, cut too much off. But so I need to look at that and get that fixed. The other thing I need to fix on this or look at is my tumbler here This is really hard to move. You can fiddle around with the chuck or the spindle and try and turn it while you're moving this, but it's got like a really tight spot in here, so I'm gonna probably have to get into this side and pull this cover off and get in there. And it probably just needs a little bit of cleaning and maybe some lube. Over here in this, I didn't talk much about this at all. This is another South Bend. This actually is a little bit older than the large one there. This is just a 9-inch South Bend. I looked the serial number on this, and this one actually is around 1940. So at some point, I think I might go ahead and, I know you can still get the invoice from South Bend. If you send them the serial number, they'll send you like a PDF of when the thing was originally bought and stuff like that. So that might be interesting to look at. Cleaning out stuff, I found this kind of dividing head here. It's got kind of an interesting pin here. Looks like they just used a reamer in there for some reason, so I'll have to take a look at that. And then this is another one here that's been sitting for a while. I need to kind of dust this off and see the manufacturer and so on, more information on this. And there's actually, I have a third one over there. It's buried here. I won't show that now. And in this area here, we've done a lot of cleanup. I've got a cricket or something in the shop there. I'm sure you can hear that, but did some cleanup in here. I'm getting ready to get rid of most of these cabinets here. Will all go to make room. I'm probably going to build a table and a material storage rack for these two saws and get those on the same elevation, and also have some kind of stop system or something. I'm not real sure if we're going to be using these a lot in the future. I think I might be looking to get a bandsaw. I think it'd be better suited to the space. And over here, I don't think I talked about this in the first few videos, but this is a cutter master. This is an end mill sharpening machine. Again, it looks like it's seen very little use. I kind of thumbed through this manual a little bit. It's pretty sparse, but from what I've read, it looks like you can sharpen mills and reamers, countersinks, and it also has an attachment for doing drills, which is something that would be useful. I don't see it here with the machine, so I'll have to look around for it. I noticed in cleaning out some of these cabinets over here, we had at one time had a Derek's drill sharpening, and that doesn't seem to be here anymore, although some of the tooling is still here for it, so that's kind of a shame. But anyhow, we'll work with what we have. And I did have a small sheet metal job and started using our shear, and I think I'm going to go ahead and bring you back and show you something that with the use of it that I discovered had a little bit of an electrical issue with it that wasn't really apparent to me when I first started using the machine, but I knew something was wrong, and that's kind of when I'll bring you guys back in on the tripod and maybe pull this front cover off. I need to do that anyhow, and reroute the wire for the foot pedal so it's in the front of the machine instead of the back. So I'll go ahead and do that, and I'll bring you back in a second. Brought you back here on the tripod. Took the front cover off the shear, and I'm gonna go ahead and run it. And so something is wrong, right? This is how it was when I came in and started working in the shop. And I think it was to me anyhow, after I used it maybe once or twice, maybe one or two cuts, that something is not right with this machine. And where I used to work, I used to tell the techs a lot of time, you know, a lot of them were new and didn't have a lot of experience, so they didn't really know when they're running equipment or something, what was right and what was wrong with it in terms of sound and readings and stuff like that. And some of that you develop obviously with experience, but in your gut, a lot of times, you know, I've never used this machine before, I just knew something was wrong with it. And what I ended up doing was going through and checking a lot of things on it. I found that the book for it, which is, start with the book. A lot of times, people say, oh, you can't go buy the book or whatever. It's a good starting point. Any reliable manufacturer is going to do, and at least make an effort to have, a starting point for some documentation. And yes, there may be a lot of things that aren't in there, but it's always a good starting point. And so I started looking at they had a little troubleshooting thing in there, and I went through all of that stuff, and I couldn't find anything really wrong with the machine. So I got in touch with National. I told them what was happening, left them a message. Probably within a half hour, their tech called me back, and he said, yeah. He said, your machine is wired for 230 three-phase, and you're probably hooked up to 208 three-phase, and you're getting chatter in your solenoid. So I went and powered the machine off and checked, and I'll probably get a still of the control transformer in here, and sure enough, that was the problem. So just switching the feed on the control transformer, problem solved. But I guess my whole point with this, and again, is I don't want to harp on it too much. If something doesn't seem right, it probably isn't, and you probably need to look at it. Unfortunately, this machine has been running in this condition for some time, and you could hear that chatter and that vibration. So there's a support here on the back of this tank that has some welded brackets, and those welds all have cracked because of the vibration that the machine was seeing. So I'm gonna have to come back in there later on, hopefully when I get the TIG welder in here and fix that. But anyhow, I just thought I'd share that with you. And regarding the voltage difference, that's something too that most equipment, at least in North America, when it's badged for 230, usually the tolerance on that is 10%. And I think I'll put a link up to a document actually that I found later on. Goes into this a little bit more detail about, you hear a lot of times people be talking about 110 or 115 or what is you go and you actually measure and it's 120. And you hear the same thing when people talk about three-phase. You'll hear 208, 230, 480, 440, 460, all these different things kind of interchangeably. And I'll put a link to the document, which is actually a good read. But in most cases, this would have been okay to hook up to, it's wired for 230. You hook it up to 208. But a lot of times when stuff has controls and control transformers, usually that's when you run into an issue. And that was a example here. I've seen this before in other test equipment that is three-phase, and it has like a lot of controls on it. It has a controls transformer, and you got different taps in there for the different voltages, and it is a little bit more sensitive than motors. Most motors, like I said, the 10% rule is usually good. If you hook up a 230 badged motor to 208, usually you don't have any issues. So I'm going to go ahead and power this guy off and make that change on the control transformer, and then we'll run it again. Okay, so I made the change, wired it correctly for the input voltage we have here, and let's turn the power back on. I'll be right back. Okay. That's how it should sound, right? No chatter. Anyhow, so that's my little blurb, I guess, on even if you're not familiar with the piece of equipment, as you develop experience working in shop or garage, mechanic, whatever, you kind of develop a feel for when something is just not right. And if it doesn't seem right, it probably isn't, and you probably need to check and figure out what's going on. So anyhow, other than that, the shear is fine. Unfortunately, again, for me, I found a 12-inch Starrett scale that goes into a combination square that had been sheared. Okay, so those are usually hardened and it's sterate, so it's pretty high quality. So now that the tool is kind of ruined, but it did kind of put a little bit of a burr edge on these on the knives. So at some point later on, I'm going to get in there and the way National sets up their shear, and I think other companies do this too, is you have more than one edge on each knife that you can use, and they have 4. So the shear blades are basically rectangular stock. So I'll go ahead and rotate those so we have good cutting edges on there. In terms of other stuff going on, like I said, I haven't been doing a lot of machining. I'll show you the other project I mentioned with the captive nuts. Again, it's very basic, so I didn't bother filming, drilling holes in sheet metal and things like that. I did make one of these prototype. This is drive for the Z-axis on the Bridgeport to put your drill on there. I got the Tubalcane, I think, did a video. I know a lot of people have done videos on these. I kind of followed his method, made some drawings and did a model of this and made it out of aluminum to see if everything worked, and it works pretty good. So I'll go ahead and round up some suitable stock and make an adapter so I don't have to crank the knee. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll bring it back to the other side of the shop, and I'll show you that sheet metal job that we had come in. Okay, so the sheet metal job is, we have a psychology department here, and they actually have a laboratory where they have rats and they do experiments with them. So this is enclosure for a rat, and from the manufacturer there were a few things that they ordered these and they didn't really like them, so they wanted me to do some modifications. And again, really simple stuff here. This here is a filler plate that I made. They have 6 of these, by the way, so this is one of 6 that I did to kind of show them, make sure everything was all right. But this is a filler panel here. Apparently there was quite a bit of a gap here from the manufacturer, and the researcher didn't like that because she said the rats would kind of mess around in that area and try and get out, even though the opening is really small. So I just made this filler panel. I've made all 6 of them, so it's just a matter of getting them installed. And what I did, the hole pattern is kind of weird because they use these for a number of different configurations. So what I did was I picked up the existing hole pattern that they had here for other accessories. So it was just a matter of getting another thumb screw and then this installed here. And over on this side here, this was actually on the other side, and we just kind of changed how this was mounted. I made these plates here that go inside to attach these 2 here, and these had those captive nuts in there. And I chose this method because I wanted to try and match what the manufacturer had done. So that's basically I made a bunch of these to mount this stuff up, and then installed some new holes here to mount this bracket. But again, really basic stuff on this side, so I didn't bother kind of filming any of that activity. And then over here, let's see if I can pick this up just to show you. They had these food containers here, and they had some brackets that they had found, and I guess the researcher was telling me that they're hard to find. So I looked at them, I said, it looks kind of like a conduit clamp to me. So sure enough, I was able to buy one that fits the jars pretty well, and they're pretty pleased with that. So this was, again, something I just drilled and added to the enclosure here for them. So that was kind of it on this job. Like I said, not a real lot going on. So again, I didn't bother filming any of this. So anyhow, I think that's it for this job. Okay, that's it. That's all I have for this video. Like I said, I just wanted to do kind of a quick update. We're in transition here in the shop where I am, trying to get stuff cleaned up. And again, like I talked about in the beginning of the video, it would be really great just to be able to have a way just to clean everything out in one fell swoop. But I can't really do that here. We're just not set up for it. So I have to do it in kind of a piecemeal fashion, and also be able to do some of these other jobs while I'm doing it. So, it is a simple job, but it takes your time. So, I can't spend all my time cleaning and stuff like that. I have to be able to do some of these small jobs that are coming in. We're trying to, I'm trying to kind of limit what's coming in right now in terms of what is being asked of me, because we don't have a lot of tooling here either. You know, that's something when you have an experienced person who's been in this position for many years. They developed a lot of tooling which was theirs, and tools and stuff like that. So we're looking to get budget to bring some of that stuff in. I have a lot of stuff, but not nearly as much as someone who's, you know, been in the trades for 30 years has. I certainly don't have that much equipment. So I'm trying to kind of limit what we're doing, and when we need to, we'll go outside to get stuff done. But luckily, we haven't had a big demand for jobs, so I haven't had to do that quite a bit. Some of the machinery, again, it needs some work. The lathe, like I mentioned earlier, the south bend needs a lot of work. It hasn't been really used in a long time. I noticed all the oil cups had grease in them, so you know, there's some issues there that I'm have to go in and clean up. So I'm going to try to not use that very much unless I have to get the belt straightened out and get in there and do not a restoration, but kind of a cleaning, and you know, maybe I'll try and film some of that. I think that might be good for content, and then also for me, so when I go to put it back together, I have some records. But again, I need to kind of wait on that because I don't have a lot of tools here. I have to make a decision. You know, if we don't have budget, you know, I might just bring my roll away from my house in here and work out of it. But again, I don't have the you know, I have a fair selection of tools, but not everything I'm going to need. And on limited budget, I have to kind of be a little bit mindful of what types of projects I choose to take on right now. So that's about all I have. Thanks everyone for watching.